Hello guys, welcome to another session. So here in this video we are going to discuss a very important topic that's related to the answer writing for mains. And what I've seen with many of the aspirants is it's not the problem with the content. You know almost everything that is there in the question, but the thing is that you're not able to realize what exactly is the demand of the question. So we need to frame your answer basically based on the keywords, right? So if the demand is critically analyze, you need to critically analyze. If it is simply discuss, you need to go for it. If it is elaborate, you need to go for it. Sometimes you'll see comment, you need to just comment on it, right? Or it could be elucidate, simply explain. So you are not able to understand the actual demand of the question and you start writing the answer based on whatever you already know. So effectively what is happening is you are just writing whatever you know rather than meeting the demand of the question. So that's why you know everything, you got the question which you already know, but even then you are not able to score that marks. So that problem is what we are going to solve here. I have taken 15 keywords that you will see in the mains. Okay, so all these keywords has been taken care, and what I do is I'll take one example from each of these keywords, for each of these keywords from the previous year papers, and we will explain that. So I'll not be discussing the answer for the question, but I'll be explaining how you can address these keywords. So understanding the keywords is very important. So you will look at the particular question, you will look at the demand of the question, and then the content you will present according to the demand of the question. That's the strategy and that's the idea of the session. So I hope the thing is very clear, and let's get started. So we'll be discussing all the keywords, which are relevant for mains. Okay. Now let's start with, okay. So before we get into these keywords, let's try to understand briefly about the importance of answer writing. So whether you are going to write the mains this year, or even if you are going to write for next year, right, those who have not cleared the prelims this year, you have to prepare for mains, and answer writing is very important because this is 1750 marks, right? If you look at all the 4 GS papers plus the essay plus 2 optionals, if you add up to, it comes around 1750. So that's why this is very critical if you want to clear this exam. So without writing answer, you cannot clear this exam. So don't think that we will study everything, we will learn everything, we'll try to develop the content, and when it comes to the actual exam, I'll be able to write, right? No, it's not about the content, it's about the delivery also, it's about the presentation also, it's about the time management also. All these need to be cleared with answer writing practice. So I'll have to discuss about that as well. So see, this is what my point is. Mostly you focus on the subject matter and try to cover the syllabus without going for any answer writing practice. You ignore the directives, like what is asked in the questions, like whether it is discuss or analyze or elaborate or elucidate or critically analyze or whatever. The keywords are very important because that is the directive and you need to follow the directive. Okay, so you are missing that directive but writing whatever you know about that particular topic, that is not going to work out. Again, so that's why it's very important, and take pen and paper, write down whatever we are discussing and try to implement it from today when you start writing your answers. So understand all these keywords and start writing answer according to the demand of the question, according to the directive. Okay. So again, if you look at the basics of answer writing strategy, these 3 are the most important things that we need to keep in mind. The content is ultimately the king, and without it, nothing is worth it, right? So you won't get any mark, whatever good presentation, whatever time management is there, without content you're not going to get anything. So this is your 80% of course is the content, and content is the king, there is no doubt. Then comes the presentation part. So here you can incorporate diagrams, you can look at flow charts, you can look at bubble charts, all these can bring the attention of the evaluator. So we will be using those in the presentation. So remember guys, we have the content part, no problem. Now you need to solve these 2, right? The presentation part and the time management part. So that you can solve through, practice. We need to start writing answers. You should be in a position to, when you are writing the mains, you should be in a position to write a 10 marker in 7 minutes. So this is going to be your target. Okay, so that's the way we need to plan your time also. Again, now there is a big question, when you should start answer writing. So I cannot, so when you're writing, mains this year, you should be starting answer writing now itself. There is no delay because you already know the content. But if you're someone who's a beginner, someone who's a fresher, it's very difficult. In fact, if you start writing from the day 1, it will be demotivating also. You may take 30-35 minutes and people are talking about 7 minutes you should be writing an answer, and even spending 30-35 minutes you are not getting the content because you don't have much knowledge, you have not yet started the preparation. So what I suggest to those people is, have some idea, cover some of the areas of the syllabus and get to know the content and everything, and then start writing the answers. So that will give you that confidence, and that will give you the idea how to present the content also. Okay, so that's the point. So you need to focus on the foundational content first, the most important contents, the core subjects that you need to cover, and then after completing some significant portions, you can start writing the answers. Okay, so for that you will be using the editorials and summaries, and you start with the note writing. So that is actually the beginning of answer writing. Now I'm coming to this year mains, don't worry, I just want to discuss if some of them who are beginners are also watching the video. For them I just mention about this. Okay, now some tips what I can give you is, don't compare the beginner answer. Now you are a beginner and don't try to, you will come across answers which is given by the toppers. So this is something which will demotivate you. You may think that I will not be able to do this. Remember, the toppers might be given 6-7 attempt, 4-5 attempt, so many mock tests and so many actual mains also they have given. So you can't compare your answer as a beginner and their answer. Always compare elephant with elephant and goat with goat. Okay, so that's very important. Don't look at the answers which you see in the internet and you compare with that when you are a beginner. At an advanced level, if you want to, you can do that. But otherwise, don't do that. We will focus on the principles, simple principles that we are supposed to learn. I'll be discussing everything, and if you can follow that, trust me that you will be able to do good in mains, in all answers. Okay, because we are catching the directive, we know the content, we will write accordingly. Other thing is that we need to manage the time. I'll discuss that also. In fact, in the previous video, I have mentioned about how you can manage the time with certain strategies. 7 techniques I have discussed over there. Okay, so what we need, you need to practice. That will help you to develop the structure in which you will be writing the answer. You'll get the flow, you'll get the clarity, you'll get that coherence, you'll get that order, and you'll get the speed also. Right, again you can write answers in point format. Again, sub paragraphs you can write, so you can underline the important headings, subheadings, and the important points that again catch the attention of the evaluator. If you want to convey something which is very important, you can either do that by using structure words, or you can underline whatever you want to convey. So this is something which you have to look into. Right, time is important for everyone. Some people will just take a glance only, even if you are getting well paid. But still, if you are underlining, if you are telling that, look at this point, this is very important, this is something which I want to convey. So underline that, he'll have to read it. So that's something which you need to keep in mind. Don't take anything for granted. Right? Now, let's talk about the structure first. Any answer, there will be a structure. And then we will look at whatever I told you, the keywords. So I try to complete this lecture in 35 to 40 minutes. So spend your time judiciously, start writing whatever we are discussing and start implementing that also. And trust me guys, you will see dramatic change from here onwards in your answer writing approach. Okay, so you should be writing an introduction, and mostly it will be well prepared because we know the most important topics, right? Whether it is conventional area, the core subjects, or it is the current affairs, we know what they can ask. So we will actually prepare the introductions for that. If not, then don't worry about that. You already have some content. Even if you have not prepared a ready-made introduction, it could be some quotes or anything like I have discussed in the previous session. I have given the quotes for certain predictable questions, right? So introduction should be like 25 to 35 words if it is a 10 marker. Okay, typically we are going to discuss about 10 marker. Let's talk about ethics and other questions later. So 25 to 30 words, and then you will be directly addressing the keywords or the topic in the question right from the beginning. Okay, and then the last sentence of the intro, that should naturally flow into the body. So these are normal methods in which you will be writing the answer. So you will normally, even when you are reading, you look at any editorial, you will come to know, you will realize it, right? So if he want to convey certain topics, it should be in the first paragraph, or there could be a different approach. He will talk from the past, and then at least in the second paragraph, first line, he'll start with the topic. But since we have time limitations, since we have, of course, the word limitation, we need to start from the beginning itself, based on the directive and based on the content, okay? And then body, it is always better to, rather than writing too much of paragraphs, if you are confident, you can go point wise, and I have given you a strategy and technique how to get 5 to 7 solid points on any answer in the previous session. Go to that and see how can you write, based on certain strategy, PDTU techniques and other things I have discussed already. 5 to 7 solid points you can get for any particular question from GS. So you follow that, and then point wise you can write, and then subheadings if it is applicable. If there are sub parts in the question, or if there are sub dimensions in the question, you go with the subheadings also. And then this is something which is very important to get the attention of the examiner. I've told you how can you draw the flow chart. If you remember in the previous session, if you see, I've explained in the case of education, right, and I've explained in the case of FDI. So I've shown flow charts, how you draw and how you explain. So draw the flow chart in the first part, and then go to the second part where you go for actual demand of the question, like critical examination or analysis or whatever. Okay, so these are things which has to be there in your answer. This is how the structure of the answer. Okay, so you look at the maps, look at the diagrams wherever it is possible, more visuals, because if the presentation is visually appealing, you'll get more marks. That's very simple idea. Okay, and the conclusion, there you can go for summary, and then definitely you will go for way forward. Optimistic tone is required even if it is a critical evaluation. So if I want to simply talk about some critical evaluation, you will give an introduction, right, and then you will talk about what is asked, like if it is NRHM, right. I'm just giving one example. If some government policies is asked, then you will talk about that. Directly you get into that, and then you follow this formula also, like CCR. The C is the contribution. So you will say how this will be contributing for the development of rural health infrastructure and other things. So you will talk about its contribution, and then you will talk about the demand of the question again, that is a critical analysis. So you will go for the criticism, right, and you will end with a way forward or a positive tone. That's what I mean by this R, which is the relevance. Still, why this program is relevant, not about NRHM. Any program you take, that is how you'll be explaining. Okay, so the structure should be like this if it is a critically analyzed question. So like that, we will have the structure for each and everything, and understanding the demand of the question and presenting according to the demand of the question with the content that you already have is what ultimately matters when it comes to the mains. That's how you'll be scoring. Otherwise, you keep on talking about this, I have wrote everything, I know this answer, I wrote it, but I'm not getting the scores. So this is actually the reason. You are not following the directives. You are not understanding the demand of the question. Yes, you know the content, you understood. There is a question, and the question actually asking about the same content which you know, but you don't know what is actually the demand of the question. Right? So based on that, you need to write it. So these are things which has to be followed when you're writing the answer. Now we need to get into the keywords, and we'll try to understand that. So one keyword, I'll spend maximum 2 minutes, and I'll try to complete it faster. Entire lecture, I planned it in 35 to 40 minutes. I don't want to waste your time and my time also. So in case if you're missing, keep taking notes and then apply it. So whatever questions I've given to you, you follow that also and write one answer for that. For example, if I'm talking about discuss, I'll give you a question. If I'm talking about critically analyze, I'll give you a previous year question. If I'm talking about elucidate, I'll give you a previous year question. Try to attempt that based on the directive which I have given, so that you won't forget it also. Just like what we followed in the last session in essay writing. Cool, guys? So, okay. Now follow this also, 80-20 rule for 15 markers. 80% of your answer should focus on the core demand of the question, and 20% can include the peripheral background into the question. That will add more depth. But if it is 10 marker, focus on 100% content into the real aspect only. No, don't deviate, don't go to the peripheral areas. Okay, now few key mistakes that I have observed is you write what you know rather than what is actually asked. So question is asked on X, you start writing everything about X and connected things. But the demand could be actually different. Related to X, they're asking something which is very specific. You may be discussing about this, you may be critically analyzing it. All these are different. So the directive is what we need to follow. So no, not what is asked. That's why you are losing the mark. Okay. And then you ignore the keywords like assess or comment or critically analyze. I'm going to solve this in this session. And then the other problem is structuring the answers without any flow. So we need that flow, right? As I've discussed, in case of critically analyzed, we have that flow: introduction, the body part, and then the CC, our contribution, criticism, relevance. Or when you start with introduction, then the body part, and then the conclusion. We need to have that structure, and we need to have that clear flow. The clarity is required about what is asked based on the directive which is given. Okay, so here you will be writing without the flow, no proper intro, no proper body, and the conclusion. All these are disconnected. There is no coherence. That is one of the other issue. So how we are going to solve it? Let's see how we are going to solve it in this session itself. Okay. Okay. Now again, one more thing that I need to answer is the multi-part questions. Sub parts or the sub questions are there. So you identify the main keyword and write the introduction accordingly. That's something which is very important. Directly you are getting into the answer, and the sequence is important. Based on the demand of the question, you will align your answer based on whatever is asked, right? So the sequence has to be followed. Complete the first part in the answer, and then go with the second part. If there are three parts, go like that only. So that sequence is important. Only after completing whatever is asked in the first part, go with the second part. So that clarity need to be clearly maintained and avoid mixing both the sub parts. Okay, fine. Now let's get into the keywords. So the first one is very simple: identify. So here, what does this mean? You need to recognize and list specific factors or the components asked in the question. Very simple. So this is exactly what you need to do. So here there is not much depth is required. Simply you can point out or list what is actually asked. So when you say identify, point out what is asked or list what all things you know about that. It's a very simple, easiest way. There is nothing, technical in this. You identify. So that's the question. One of the question, if I need to take, identify the key provisions of 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. So what you need to do, you need to list the major provisions like Gram Sabha, 3-tier system, State Election Commission, whatever you know about 73rd Constitutional Amendment. So this is a very simple question, pretty easy one. I hope this is very clear. So that's one thing. You can approach that answer also. Now the next one, discuss. So what do you mean by discuss? Here you need to present a detailed analysis of the one which is asked. So you need to cover all the aspects, the positives, the negatives, and the implications, the way forward. Everything has to be covered if the question is about discuss. Now one of the previous year question, if I want to take, or the approach is basically, it's not just about description of what is asked. You need to go beyond that. The positives, the negatives, the suggestions, everything should come when it comes to discuss. It's a discussion. Okay, so you need to mention the pros and the cons and suggest the way forward of that particular question which is asked. Cool. So discuss the role of election commission in ensuring free and fair election. So what you will do here, you will analyze the powers of election commission, the functions, the limitations, whatever reforms is required, what are the positive things done, negatives, and the recent examples. So it covers, what my point is, compared to identify, it have more depth. It covers multiple areas, right? So detailed analysis of the topic is what you need to give here. Now describe. So here this is describe means you see, you need to provide a neutral and factual elaboration of whatever is asked. It's again very simple, just like identify. So here you don't want to analyze or do anything, but rarely you get this kind of questions in UPSC. You'll get analyze, critically analyze, discuss, like that only. The depth here is very less. Okay, so you need to do just organize and present the facts systematically, whatever is asked. For example, describe the characteristics and types of igneous rocks. So these questions will come in mostly the conventional topics like geography. So here you will be talking about what is intrusive, what is extrusive, and the features like crystalline, lack of fossils, and all these. Fine, simple one. Now next one, elucidate. So here again you need to explain in clear, simple, and understandable manner about what is actually asked. It's similar to describe only. So simplify, what you do is normally if there is a complex concept is asked, you just need to simplify it and use a proper, clear, common man's language, and use the basic examples. So for example, elucidate the relationship between globalization and new technology in a world of scarce resources. So what you can do is you can break down each concept, what is globalization and about technology, and you try to relate them using basic, simple logic and commonsensical explanation, and the contemporary Indian examples also. Now, next one, elaborate. So here you need to explain in greater detail with multiple perspectives, different perspectives like the economic dimension, social, political, all these aspects need to be brought into your answer. That's what I mean by elaborate. So you will be going very deep into this and you will explore multiple dimensions and its implications also. Okay. So here if you look at this question, elaborate on the challenges faced by cooperative federalism in India. So here you will be explaining what is federalism, and then you will give examples from center-state relations and then the GST council disputes and all these things we will need to cover. So here again there is more depth when it comes to elaborate. So these are the questions you normally get: analyze, elaborate, discuss, critically analyze, etc. Identify, describe and all chances are very less. Examine, this also you will get. Here, this again having some depth, you need to investigate the issue deeply and you need to explain the supporting and opposing viewpoints and you need to make a conclusion also. Okay, so you need to describe and then analyze all sides, the pros and the cons, and conclude with a balanced judgment. So that's what examine. Okay, so for example, examine the potential of wind energy in India and explain reasons for its limited spatial spread. So here you can show the potential, you can talk about the limitations, the inland regions, potential cost and deserts, and you need to suggest the improvements. Talk about the positives and negatives and improvements. Okay, deeply you need to go for analysis here. This is one of the favorite of the examiner: critically examine or critically analyze. So here it is same as examine, but mandatory criticism, and you need to take your own stand also. So that's why if you remember when I discussed previously critically analyze, I added criticism in between. So it's about contribution, criticism, relevance. So this part is mandatory. When it comes to examine, it is not mandatory. Even, see, if everything is positive, we don't want to go a mandatory criticism. But if it is critically analyzed, you have to critically analyze, you have to bring in your criticism over there. Okay, and that's how you will be making the analysis of the examination. So you will present both the agreement and disagreement and you will conclude with a reasoned stand. Again, end with a positive note or reforms or suggestions, like I told you, the relevance. Fine. For example, critically examine the impact of digital technology as a reliable source of input for rational decision making. So talk about this, jam trinity, real-time monitoring, the cons as, data privacy issues, manipulation, and of course you will be ending with a suggestions, reforms, the way forward, the relevance. Cool. Now, next is justify. So here, basically you need to support the given statement and, for that you need to use a valid argument and evidence. So what the statement is given, you need to support that, use the valid arguments, talk about the positives, and you need to justify. It's again very simple one. So agree with the statement and prove it with logic, examples, data, case studies. So your job is to prove the statement which is given. For that, you present the case studies, you present the data, you present the facts, and go with the same stand, support the statement. So justify the need for a uniform civil code in India. So here it's not about critical analysis, you need to justify the need for this. So you talk about the positives, you talk about the benefits and other things, right? Take the case studies, connect it with the other countries, like that. So here, explain how this will ensure equality. It will reduce communal tension and, constitutional mandate and everything you can refer. So the point is, why we are discussing these types and explaining how it need to be done and giving one example question, the point is, you understood what is actually the directive now, right? And then you got the question. Now the thing is that you need to write an answer based on the directive. That's the reason why I'm giving the question. So once you are writing the answer, then you won't forget. Okay? So now the comment. So basically here your comment, you need to offer your viewpoint here and whatever statement which is given, your viewpoint with again evidence, reasoning, proper reasoning. So again it will be kind of justified, but there mandatorily you have to support it. Here comment with the questions torn and 70% here you will be agreement. But since it is comment, you have some flexibility. But again, let me tell you, 70% has to be agreement and 30% you can show the disagreement and discuss. Okay. So show some criticisms also here, not exactly like justify. Similar but different. Justify, 100% you have to justify. Here comment, 70% you will go with the statement, but still you can take the other stand also, like 30%. Give the criticism also. So, one example, the states in India seem reluctant to empower urban local bodies, both functionally as well as financially. Comment. Cool. So you will agree, right? Examples of delayed evolution and devolution and everything you discussed. But again, you go with partial disagreement here. Like there are exceptions, like Kerala, you talk about that, and then conclude with way forward. So I hope you are getting that difference. So it has to be reflected in your answer, that you understood what is actually the demand of the question and you're writing the answer according to the demand of the question, rather than simply writing all the contents about, 73rd Amendment or whatever it is asked. Assess. So here, assessment, right? What does that mean? You evaluate both the positive and negative sides and then give the informed judgments. Okay? So here, break it into the strength, the weaknesses, the positive, the negative, the impact and the balanced conclusion with, if required, the way forward. So assess the role of National Human Rights Commission in protecting human rights in India. Guys, these all keywords I have taken from the previous year questions, and the examples that I'm giving here are directly from the previous year questions. So you need to understand, this is very important, understand the demand of the question. Here, what is the demand? Write an answer. Okay, because all these are not related to the current affair. I have taken it from the static area so that it is relevant anytime. So you can write an answer, then you won't forget what exactly is the demand of the question. If it is assess, this is what I need to do. If it is analyze, this is what I need to do. If it is describe, this is what. If it is examine, this is what. If it is comment, this is what. If it is analyze, this is what. If it is critically analyze, this is what. If it is justify, this is what. Elaborate, explain, all these we have explained already. So you should have that clarity about what is asked. The content wise, I don't think that you will face any problem if you are clearing the prelims. But remember, the presentation is what ultimately matters. Of course, content is king, but content alone will not do. What makes the difference is that 20%, the presentation and the time management. Very important. Cool. So, account for, again, so you need to explain the reasons or causes for something. It's a direct, straightforward question, causal explanation of whatever it is asked. So here you will be, listing down or elaborating on the causal factors, the causal explanation of what is asked. So account for the legal and political factors responsible for reduced frequency of Article 356 after mid-1990s. What are the causes of reduced, Article 356 from mid-90s? Simple. So you will be talking about, see, these are related to the content. SR Bommai case, you will talk about judicial review, right? And then judicial activism, coalition politics. So because of all these reasons, it is reduced. So these are causal factors you need to highlight here. Trace. This could be like, evolution. So you talk about, chronological explanation of developments or events. Like you talk about the past, you talk about the present, and then you talk about the future, the suggestions, the reforms, like that. Okay, so that's trace. So you basically narrate the evolution in sequence. If they're asking a question on education, you start from Gurukul system, then you talk about British time education, the evolution of modern Indian education, talk about Machiavelli, talk about Wood's Dispatch, the Magna Carta of modern Indian education, comes to the post-independence education policies and everything. So that's what I mean by trace. Okay. So, for example, take this example. Trace the rise and growth of socio-religious reform movement in India with special reference to Young Bengal and Brahmo Samaj. So here what you'll do, you start with the early, this 19th century socio-religious reform movements, then you talk about Brahmo Samaj, you give specific reference to Raja Ram Mohan Roy or Henry Vivian Derozio, and then the Arya Samaj, then the Prarthana Samaj, then the Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and all these, reformist movements you can talk about, revivalist also you can talk about. Okay, here since they are asking about reforms, talk about the reformist movements, not Arya Samaj and others, okay. So maybe towards the end, if you want to, you can mention about there were revivalists also, but focus like 80% should be on, reformist, or make it 90 to 100% because it's about trace, and they're asking you to trace the reform movements. But generally, when we talk about under the heading of socio-religious reform movements, you talk about reformist movement and revivalist movement. Reformist, you talk about, mainly you talk about Arya Samaj, right? And then from the Islam side, you talk about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, Aligarh movement. And then revivalist movement, you talk about, here you talk about Brahmo Samaj and Aligarh movement. And revivalist, you talk about Arya Samaj, and then you talk about the Wahhabi movement from the Islam side. And then under that again further topics also you will be covering. But these are the 4 main dimensions which has to be covered in socio-religious reform movements. Okay. Now give reasons. Again, it is going to be very simple one. We have seen this question before, that's why I have taken this keyword. List and explain the causes in a straightforward manner. Simple. Simple causal explanation. They like what account for. Causal explanation. Just list down the causes. So here there is no need of critical analysis. Just explain why something happened. What is asked. Just explain that. Okay. Now the previous year example, if I need to take, why was there a sport in famines in colonial India since the mid 18th century? Give the reason. So you talk about economic drain. So there is a debate. It is man-made famine because of economic drain. This is a version of the nationalist. Okay, and then land revenue policies and the neglect of food security, and of course the natural factors. That's a British reason. There were natural reasons also, but focus again more on man-made reasons, land revenue policies, this one, economic drain. These are the ones which is highlighted by the nationalists, especially that 1880 during Lytton's time, that famine, and then the famine code. Okay. Illustrate means explain using examples or cases, case studies, very simple. So it's similar to elucidate only, but again use concrete illustrations, use the data, events and case studies. One of the example question, illustrate the significance of cooperative federalism in recent times. So you can talk about that, right? So explain with the data, events like GST, COVID-19 management, the way it is managed, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Enumerate or list. Okay, so here again simply list the points or components of whatever is asked. Question is on X, just list down the components. That's what you mean by enumerate. So minimal elaboration, focus on clear or the ordered listing of whatever is asked. So one of the example question that I'm taking, I hope you got the point why the previous year question is taken, because you will be writing it and you won't forget the directive. So once you start writing it, anyway you have to write, and all these are, you know, very relevant topics for the next year also, this year also, anytime also. Though they won't repeat the question, they repeat the themes. You remember I told you this. So these are areas like national food security. This not directly this question, but the theme, the same topic can be asked again. So you talk about the entitlements, the coverage, the grievance redressal part and everything. So this is what we have covered, guys. So elucidate means you will be simplified explanation, moderate depth. I'm just listing it down for that, so that you can just take it down or take a snapshot now. Okay, take a snapshot of it. And elaborate means deep explanation with perspectives like social, political, economic, all these will be covered. Discuss means a balanced view, pros and cons and the implications. Describe means factual, organized explanation. Examine means detailed analysis, both the positives and negatives, implications need to be evaluated. Give the way forward, suggestions, solutions. Critically examine, like similar to examine, but a mandatory criticism is required. Always follow the CCR model. Contribution, criticism, relevance. Introduction, body part, and then this contribution, criticism, relevance part. Fine. And comment. So here it is basically opinion based, but you will have to agree the statement 70%, and slight disagreement is okay. But justify, if you take, that is 100% justification. You need to agree. Okay, that's what. Justify, full agreement. So you have to defend the statement with strong logic and evidence. Assess. So here you have to weigh the strength and the weakness, and you need to give a balanced final view after analyzing both positives and negatives. Account for means causal explanation. So you'll be listing down the causes or factors. Guys, you can take a snapshot of it. So both the pages. So we have covered everything over there. And trace means the chronological order, the reconstruction of the events. I've given enough example also for that. Give reasons, direct ones, simply listing and explaining the causes, similar to account for. Illustrate, that you will explain with examples or case studies. Enumerate or list means again direct listing, not much elaboration required. So that's all about the keywords which you should be knowing. Now, why I discussed all these? Because I've seen most of the students, they write the content, they have the content, but not able to understand the actual demand of the question. So that's why if you're not understand the directive which is given, if you don't follow the directive, you won't get the mark. Okay? So that 20% matters. That's why you may do good, you may feel like you have written good, but you may get a mains interview call also, but ultimately when the mark list comes, mains just cleared. That's not what we want to have. There are many who were expected to be at the top hundreds, but not able to do it because of this low main score. But if you look at their knowledge, it's super amazing. And prelims, they're scoring 160s also. So that shows that knowledge level. But the presentation part or the time management part is missing. So presentation, focus on these keywords, directives. Time management part, start writing the answers from today onwards. With this, I think I have given 15 questions. At least that 15 questions you write, you will remember each of the keywords and you'll get an answer writing practice also. Now, lastly, practice answer writing. Actual previous year questions with proper structuring and keywords. As I discussed here, these are the keywords which has been asked so far. All the keywords which I have seen, I have picked up, given everything to you. Now you know what to do for this particular directive. You don't have an excuse now. I have given examples also for which you can start attempting for practice. And always keep introduction short, precise, and the keyword targeted. That I am straight to the point. Right? You need to be, you don't beat around the bush. You should be always straight to the point. Never go for filler content. It's waste of time. No one is going to get any mark. Don't think that I don't know about this, I'll go for a filler content and get some mark. No, you're not going to get anything. It's point-wise mark. Okay, so stick to the demand of the question always. And again, you have your mentor, continuously get your answers evaluated by him and assessed by him and see the improvements that is actually happening. Peer-to-peer evaluation is also very good if you cannot afford to have a mentor or if you don't have a mentor. And if you are looking for any answer writing programs or the test series or the mentorship or the classes, you can always get in touch with us. So that's it guys, thank you so much for watching the session, for your patience. I hope you got some value from the session and I hope you like the video. Start implementing it from today and I'm sure that you'll be able to do very good when it comes to answer writing. I'm sure that you'll be able to present good, you'll be able to save your time also. I mean, you'll be able to manage your time also. So see you in the next session.